Hi, I'm John Crawford and I'm blind. Okay, I'm going to be talking about something very important today, but before I do, I'm going to make a quick disclaimer. I'm a guy that teaches music lessons to little kids and adults. I am not a lawyer. I don't have any law degrees, nor do I have any specialized training in the interpretation, practice, or understanding of the law. I am, like I say, I'm just a music teacher. So what I'm going to be talking about is not an interpretation of the law, and I don't have any specialized knowledge in any kind of constitutional law, federal statutes, state statutes, or any of that stuff. But with that having been said, I did some considerable research on the Americans with Disabilities Act, in particular Title III, Section 302, which is the provision in the Americans with Disabilities Act for people who handle service dogs, their rights and responsibilities, and the rights and responsibilities of business owners and others who may have to grant access to a service animal. Okay, the first thing that the law covers, the statute actually defines a service animal as any animal such as a dog which provides assistance for people with disabilities. A service animal is defined as an animal that performs tasks which are directly related to the individual's disability. They must perform tasks that are directly related to the person's disability. Animals that provide merely emotional support or comfort are not considered service animals. They are not defined in this way. The next thing I'm going to talk about is the rights that service animal handlers have for access. Businesses of public accommodation must grant access to individuals who have service animals in places where the public is generally allowed to go. And as such, there are only two inquiries about service animals that a proprietor can ask under the federal statute. Question one is this a service animal? And question two is, what tasks does this animal perform to aid with your disability? A proprietor may not ask, and this says this in the law, this is very clear here. The proprietor may not ask for medical documentation. They may not ask a service animal handler to discuss their disability or ask them about their disability, and they may not require the service animal handler to provide any medical documentation or an identification card. It specifically says that in the federal statute. You are protected from those inquiries in the federal law. That is absolutely clear. The reason I'm talking about that particular thing about inquiries about service animals is because I myself have had people attempt to deny me access when I had a guide dog. So it is very important to understand you can only ask two questions. And I stated those before. You cannot ask for an ID card. You cannot ask for any documentation. Okay, moving on to the responsibilities for the service animal handler. A service animal handler must have their animal under control at all times by use of a tether, a leash, or a harness at all times, unless the use of a tether, leash, or a harness actually interferes with your disability. And then you must have the animal under control by way of verbal commands at all times. So your animal must be under control at all times. You as a service animal handler are also responsible for the care of your service animal while you're on the premises. Proprietors are not required to provide care or supervision of your animal. Service animals must be in control at all times, and that includes avoiding such things as excessive barking. They must be housebroken, and they must not disturb others. So those are the rights and the responsibilities of the service animal handler. The proprietor of a business has the right to deny access to a service animal handler if the animal is considered to be out of control, such as not being housebroken or jumping on people or barking or anything like that. But the proprietor must also provide a way for the service animal handler to obtain goods and services at their establishment without the presence of their service animal. That is a basic summary of the rights and responsibilities of a service animal and their handler. It is, again, very important to know these things. I have had people try to deny me access to places when I know that I had my guide dog under full control, and I've had people ask me for identification cards, and people ask me if I was blind and different things like that. And they just can't, they simply, under the law, they can't ask you those questions. What I'm asking people to do, both service animal handlers and the general public, proprietors, law enforcement individuals, and everybody, is make themselves aware of these statutes so they understand what these laws are, what a proprietor can ask, what they can't ask, why they may or may not be able to deny you access in their establishment. This is a very, very important thing, because that is still something that we're all still trying to cover. Okay, guys, I've done the best I can with interpretation of that. Do your own research. If you have corrections or anything like that, I'm good with that. Write them down here in the comment section. Write me messages. Let me know what you know about it. And let's work together to increase public awareness of this very important statute. Okay, guys, have a good night. Tomorrow I'm hoping to talk about your rights with a white cane, because white cane laws are pretty interesting too. Okay, we'll talk to you guys later. Have a good night.